Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking. I'm your host, Jackie Wilson. And today's guest says, if not for God, some of the darkest times of his life, from divorce to being a single dad of 5 kids, would not have been possible to traverse. He is the author of the book, Give a Heck, How to Live Life on Purpose and Not by Accident. And today we will hear a portion of his story and how he overcame financial despair and sleepless nights to helping others in the midst of him overcoming his troubles. Let's welcome to the CWS stage, Mr. Dwight Heck. Welcome,
Good
Dwight.
morning. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Your story is fascinating to me because I think a lot of people face the type of trouble that you have faced. You're trying to provide for your family. You're not as sure exactly what to do. You have a job in an industry that a lot of people would love to have, but you're still struggling. And then you overcome. Can you share with the audience what it was like?
Well, it was a tough thing because initially before I got into the financial industry, I owned a computer consulting company and went through that state of divorce which nobody wants to have gone through. And through that period in my life, God was there for me and helped me get through that tumultuous journey in my life. But as human beings, we tend to get caught up in what's going on around us, and it's easy for us to fall back, right, and end up tripping and not necessarily knowing how to get up. And I went through the divorce situation just prior to that. A few years prior to that, I had gotten into a circumstance of not understanding the rules of the money game and trying to do like everybody else and keeping up with the Joneses and the Smiths and the neighbors and the your family, and showing a facade of being rock solid and having enough money to buy whatever I wanted. And there was times where I did have that, but there was more times than not where I lived a life of quiet desperation. And getting into financial services, I started educating and teaching people how to avoid that. But unfortunately, in some ways, I was being, a hypocrite. And I guess if that's the right word, I wasn't necessarily living my own life on purpose. I got my kids in a full time situation, and I'd literally go to bed at night in quiet desperation, not understanding how I was going to pay the bills the next day. Yet I was a six-figure income earner
Mm.
initially. And obviously, we had some circumstances that happened back in, let's say, we'll give you the year of 2008, where the housing industry caused an economic meltdown around the world, and it's which started in the US and it just basically propagated everywhere. And I had to take on the challenge of being a full-time dad because prior to that I was just had joint custody of my kids, and now I have them full time. Well, my industry, a lot of it is done in the evenings and on weekends, and I couldn't do it. Now I'm 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I'm taking my kids to their extracurricular activities, to school, making them lunches, making sure they get fed. I was lucky if I could go out and work 1 day a week. And I had to wear a mask. I had to live a life of a facade. I'd go to bed at night in quiet desperation. I'd literally pray. I didn't know what else to do but pray to God for support and relief of my 6 inches between my ear, the pains that I had in my brain and in my emotional state of mind. And God would answer me that, things will be okay. You just need to keep on pushing forward. You're doing the right things. You're prioritizing the core values that I've instilled upon you, because I used to always think my three core values, which are faith, family, and work, were something that I came up with, but actually it was presented to me by God. It took me a while to realize that, God gives us messages. He does things for us, not to us. And I embraced those core values. Did it happen overnight? Absolutely not. Again, I'd have good days and bad days. I'd come down the stairs and greet my kids, and I'd live a facade. I'd have a smile on my face, They'd, oh, dad, we need this or we need that, and not understanding how I'm going to pay for it. Because not because I didn't understand the financial rules of the game, I didn't understand budgeting. I had stopped living it, because to live it meant that I would, I'd literally have breakdowns. I'd cry. I'd go hide up in my bathroom after I'd cook them supper and tell them that, dad's got to go upstairs, use the washroom. It wasn't even that I needed to use the washroom. I needed to just have a meltdown and then put back up on my game face, and come back down and present them a facade again. And I'd go to bed like that. I'd wake up like that. And I had to look back at my life and say to myself, what did I do successfully to get myself out of this rut? I need to reset myself. So I started looking at some of my clients that I had helped over the years, the success stories of their lives and how they were continually staying on that success path, and start applying that again to my own life. And that involved me having to look at my associations of what I was watching, listening to, reading, who I was talking to, how I was talking. It's not just about what we ingest; it's how we project to others too. And I put a lot of time and energy into my life to get to that point, to help all these families to not fall into that rut. And the message I'd give your listeners is, guess what? No matter how good you think you are, you can fall back into that rut. You can have circumstances that cause you to fall into that rut. And my two biggest circumstances were in 2008, my kids coming to be with me full time, and my financial industry crashing because of an economic downturn that was global. And those two circumstances I wouldn't wish on anybody, in the sense that together they were a disaster for me emotionally and mentally. And I had to put on like I said, a mask to protect my kids, which forced me into that quiet desperation. It drove me closer to God again. Like, not that I had wandered away from him, but we take God for granted. And I had to realize that God was always with me, always present, and always there to listen to me and give me advice as I prayed. But I'd wake up and sometimes ignore it. And how many of us do that? God will send us people as a sign to support us. And, the old story goes, the person was drowning and God send a boat, God send a helicopter, God did all this stuff. He goes up to the pearly gates and says, God, why didn't you help me? Well, how many more things did you want me to send to help you? And I use that as that's not the exact story, but I was that person. God would send things to me and I would be like, I got it. I thought I knew it all. And we can't be like that in life. We need to realize that we don't have to always be strong, that somebody is there for us. And for me, that's always been God. Again, through my childhood bullying and all the stuff I went through, to being a single dad, to struggling through my business, to where I am today, I've been blessed and highly favored.
Yeah. And so there was a turnaround. Can you tell us about the turnaround?
The turnaround for me again was, I woke up one day back around in the 2000s, and I realized that I was spending more month. Pardon me, I had more month than I had money, and it was unacceptable. I needed to understand that I needed to. My kids were looking at me, and we're walking examples and teachers, whether it's verbally or just through what we give out and present to our families. So the biggest turnaround for me was that time in the 2000s, in the late 2000s, where I logged on. There was many, but one of the most simplistic ones that people, your listeners, can appreciate is I'd log on to my bank account, and I was terrified as I was waiting for it to pop up whether or not I'd be broke or beyond broke. Broke being I'd be at zero, beyond broke I'd be into overdraft, and whether or not I'd be able to pay my bills. And I literally one day logged on, and I snapped. I literally had an emotional and mental snap, and said to myself, enough is enough. You've done this and helped so many other people out. You need to rise above this and do whatever it takes, obviously in a moral, ethical way, to get yourself back on track. And again, that's like I said, that's why I just, that was a turning point for me. And I sat and reflected. It took weeks, months. It didn't happen overnight. So whoever's listening, don't expect yourself to snap your fingers and change overnight. It's a baby step process. Even if you've done it before, you've helped yourself get out of, the quiet desperation of life. It was a baby step situation. Every day I did little things that changed. I reevaluated my situations. I reached out to people that were in a more stable place in their lives that had mentored and coached me before and said, "Hey, I need your help again." Or sometimes
Yeah.
it was new people, right? And I evaluated again my associations and started to pivot. It took me till 2011 to get myself literally back to a place where I was confident. And so, and the reason I say that, that's a 3 year period of time.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I had to get adjusted to raising kids completely on my own. I had to get it readjusted to a work schedule where I could integrate between their extracurricular and school activities to being able to work. I had to literally re-pattern my life from the pattern that I was used to and
Hmm.
accept the fact that old normal was never going to happen again. I had to create a new normal, a new sense of purpose, a new sense of passion for life, and not just for myself. My family deserved it, and so did my friends and clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you wrote this book. Can you tell us
Yes.
a little bit more about it and how you hope to help people with the book?
Well, I wrote the book in it was a process that started in 2020 during the pandemic. I was kind of stuck. I was thinking to myself, well, who else is stuck? And I got involved with a group of entrepreneurs that were all in the same circumstances. Their businesses had ground to a halt, or they were in businesses that just got worse when the pandemic hit. And we started talking, and the biggest thing that people don't realize is that vulnerability and sharing of stories can help us, each individual or groups of people, through the worst tumultuous times of our lives, because we all want to know that we're not alone, that other people have gone through challenging times. And we started sharing stories all the way back from our initial origins, from my earliest recollections as a little boy, little Dwight. I started sharing my stories, and we'd have circumstances. And then I ran into one of the people in our group who's actually a publisher. And he said, "You should write a book. You need to share this information from your earliest recollections of, being a child with, I was a sickly kid. I had a lot of health issues. I was bullied because of it. Um, had a degenerative spine disease, which I still have, right? So different things that caused me trials and tribulations that maybe people could relate to, maybe not having the same thing, but when we commiserate in a positive way and give people the opportunity to climb out of it because we've been able to climb at it, and giving them faith that they can do it, giving them some hope, because that's what's died a lot in our society. And I could see that in the pandemic. So I spent about 5.5 months writing that book. And the book basically starts again at my earliest recollections of growing up, my first entrepreneurial journey, um, things that I learned about growing up with a very successful father, things that I promised I'd never do myself, be that
Mhm.
workaholic, which I did
Yeah.
fall into the odd time. Um, had to realize, all the different points in my life where I had realization that there was things that I needed to change. Um, and so basically starts as a young kid all the way up to where I'm currently at today. I don't focus a ton on finance. I focus on belief. I focus on God. I
Yeah.
focus on the spirit. I focus on the fact that, you know, there's we're just a small little dot in the universe, right? We're not inconsequential, but we are, you know, so small that if we want to make a difference, we want to make an impact, we have to stop thinking that we can't make an impact. Because myself, at one point in time, I heard this all the time: you can't make a difference. Well, yes, you can. You can make a difference one person at a time. And this book is going to help somebody. And I've had tremendous response from it.
Mm.
People in their teens people in
Yeah.
in their 70s, people that have read it and just went, oh my gosh, you went through all this with health issues and you still did this, you still fought through it, you still continued to push forward. And wait a minute, oh, you learned how to control your finances, like learning the rules of the money game. You learned how, and wow, it's that simplistic. Because in the book, I talk a little bit in one chapter about how to budget. I talk a little bit in one book, in one chapter, how to goal set. How many of us would love to learn how to goal set? We don't learn how to budget in school. We don't learn how to goal set in school. We don't learn how to deal with emotional strife in school. And I'm not here to pick on school. School teaches us some basics, but it doesn't teach us life skills. And I thought, hey, I'm going to make an easy read book. It's only 150 pages that can give people hope that no matter the trials and tribulations you go through, you can rise above that and you can literally change your own life. And along the way, you can change one person at a time's life. And that's been
Yeah.
my whole mission the last 20 years of my business. But it became really prevalent in 2020 when I wrote the book.
Yeah. And you say that we have to live life on purpose. We can't live it by accident.
Absolutely. That phrase came around in 2002 when I started in the finance industry. I didn't initially like my trainer, and within 6 weeks, I fired my trainer because they were a person that was very transactional. They weren't relationship driven. And what I mean by that is relationship driven sales, because we are selling ourselves every day of our life. Even if you're an employee, you're selling yourself for $1 and you're giving your time up, right? And how good you are at doing that is going to make sure whether or not you keep your job, whether you get promoted, whether you get raises, the list goes on. So I started training myself. Well, how did I do that? I reached out to people, I asked questions, I read books, I went to conferences.
Mm.
And I realized one day I heard somebody say something in a phrase, and it wasn't exactly how to live life on purpose and not by accident, but it was like, I look back at it now and I realize it was God saying to me, you need something simple, impactful, that's going to make a difference when you say it to people. And it took me years to consistently use that phrase, but really at the end of the day, we're a human population that lives on a hamster wheel from the time we get out of school till the time we die. And what I mean by a hamster wheel, we climb onto it every single day. We go to work, go home, get paid, go to work, go home, get paid. We live for the weekends. We live for a few week vacation during the year. We live to um, we live in a circumstance where it's always the same and it's around and around and around. And I said to myself one day, oh my gosh, like what can I do different for others, including myself? And I have to get myself in check before I can help others. I'm not living a life on purpose. I'm just living it by accident. I'm living it like every other person, every other digit on this planet that, goes to school, you graduate, you come out, you get a job, then you spend the next 40 years and you sit back and think to yourself, I just want to retire. I can't wait till I retire. And then I was started to talk to people that were retired that was starting to help. And they were telling me, we're fearful of being able to stay retired, or we're fearful, pardon me, of running out of money before we pass away.
Mm.
And I'm just thinking to myself, oh my gosh, people from the youngest age to the oldest age are feeling the same fears and debilitating circumstances in their mindset. I need to teach them how to live life on purpose and not by accident. I'm still figuring out for myself how I am getting there, but I'm not going to wait till I arrive till I start helping people along the way. So I may be a little bit farther in the journey, but I can help them start on the game
Yeah.
spaces of life to move forward. So that's how it came about. It's as 20 years ago. And obviously has become more prevalent, as of 2020 and 2021 when the book come out. I get asked about it a lot, but that's what it is. So many of us just live a life in quiet desperation on the hamster wheel of life, never understanding how to live life on purpose. That's why in the book it talks about here's a simplistic way of setting goals. Here's a simplistic way of budgeting. Are all the details in there? Absolutely not. The book would be pretty darn big if I put everything in there. And I
Yeah.
find that most people, a book could be a catalyst for them, but it's a hard place for them to learn. They still need that human interaction. And then that's why people reach out to me, and I coach people and have calls with people now around the world that reach out to me to learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. And it's applying the simplistic things that I talk about in the book. It's none of it's rocket
Yeah.
science, but society has made us think that it's hard, and it's not.
And
It's
it's
very
not hard
easy.
at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell people what's next for you.
Right now I've been working the last, I'd say probably 15 years, maybe longer. I've been doing workshops for people in a work situation, not work situation, but in a room situation where I could be doing a workshop to 10 people to hundreds of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken that workshop series and I've been working on it. I'm about 70% done it, revamping it, making it more user friendly so that I can do these workshops virtually through
Mm-hmm.
Zoom. Still
Mm-hmm.
do them obviously in a classroom setting or in a conference setting. And these workshops basically, from the first workshop to the end, teach people how to, like, first workshop teaches people how to increase cash flow and manage their debt, manage their
Mm-hmm.
money, because so many people are in debt today. They don't know how to get out of debt. They don't know what to do. And they turn to companies that are all transactional based, and they'll help them get out of debt, but it destroys their credit, destroys their 6 inches between their ears, because people feel like a failure. They don't
Yeah.
understand that there's simple things that we can utilize through understanding their inflows and outflows of money. If you're making $1 and you're spending $1.20, why is that?
Yeah.
Have you
There's
reevaluated?
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
have and I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've been there. What do you have on your radar? Like, what are you spending every single month? What is a need and a want? And then that need and want thing circumstance, I started teaching my kids that when they were really little. What's the difference between a need and a want? So I teach them how to goal set. I teach them how to budget and,
Mm-hmm.
and look at their budget and be
Yeah.
honest with themselves. Why aren't your haircuts down on there? And maybe you're like me, you don't need a haircut, but why aren't your haircuts down there? It comes out of your bank account,
Yeah.
doesn't
It's
it?
the
Well,
simple
yeah,
things.
it's the simple things. And then you look at this stuff. What's a need in here and what's a want?
Yeah.
Okay, let's push the wants back and focus on your needs. Well, one of the needs is you're in debt. Let's
Yeah.
figure out how we can get you out of debt. Oh,
Yeah.
you don't need the top of the line cable package. You don't need the best cell phone package. You don't need to go to Starbucks 5 times a week. You don't need to do some of these things. These are all wants. Let's dial your wants back, focus on your needs, take that extra money. And I help people free up money all the time in their budget. They're shocked. $50, $100, guess what? All of a sudden,
Yeah.
that can be an extracurricular activity for your kids. Maybe it can
Yep.
be $50 towards your debt. That's living a life on purpose.
Yeah.
And then your passion for life, your enjoyment of life, the journey that we're living, because this is not a dress rehearsal. Life is in session. And that is what living life on purpose is all about. And those workshops series that I'm working on are designed to help that, so that I don't have to have somebody come to where I live. I can help them, whether they're in Australia or in their United Kingdom or they're
Yeah.
in the US. I can take them to this workshop series so that they can literally understand that they can have hope and faith in tomorrow, right? And live a better today, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's what I've been working a lot on. And also, I've been working on my speaking career as well, going and speaking at more non financial situations where it's not about finance. What my message is taken away from finance. That is part of your life, but you need to understand that you can be vulnerable with yourself and then others, and then seek out the right help to get on the track of living a life off the hamster wheel.
Yeah. Dwight, in this last minute that we have, tell people how they can connect with you.
The best way to connect with me is just go to my website, giveaheck.com. You'll go into there. It's designed around a portal system. You can click and book a call with me. You can click and email me. You can find out more information about my book, my podcast as well. And you can check out my financial education and what I do. There's a brief synopsis in there on the steps that I take people through and how to live life on purpose and not by accident.
Yeah, love it. CWS audience, you have heard him. He is giving you a challenge, and that challenge is live life on purpose. Don't live life by accident. It's really in the simple things that you do to make your life better. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And until next time, beautiful people, God bless.